You can take a flower, roll it up and make it fine. Sprinkle it with knowledge and a little bit of time. Cover it with headlines and a sweet euphoria too. Cannabis man, cannabis man, cannabis man. Spreading news and joy across the land. Diving deep into the growing green. Cannabis man, we're all keen. Ooh yeah. Ooh yeah.
Hello, and welcome into another episode of the Cannabis Man podcast. Thank you so much for clicking on the show. I am your host, Don Kleppen. And if it's your first time here, welcome in. If it is not your first time here, you've been here before, a returning favorite, much appreciate you coming back, and you could probably skip this opening spiel, head to about 10 minutes in, and catch the start of this week's expert interview. Changing up the format this time, but if it is your first time here, this is a show where we're trying to take a more journalistic look at all things legal cannabis. I've been a broadcaster in Chicago for about 15 years on the radio, doing news and traffic and weather and sports and all that jazz. And I've been a personal cannabis user for about 20 years now. It was something that I was introduced to after high school by some friends of mine, and we used it socially, but then I quickly found that it helped me get to sleep at night and stay asleep, which is something I'd always struggled with throughout my life. And that led me to kind of keeping it as a part of my life. And so as it became more and more legalized in states around the United States, as well as countries around the world, I sort of looked at it both as a personal user, I was excited, and I was also excited as a broadcaster to kind of bring conversations I'd always had with people around a bonfire or, at a party or wherever we were smoking. We would talk about kind of the benefits that cannabis had brought to our lives. I was excited to bring those conversations to a wider audience, and people especially who maybe were curious about cannabis or never had a chance to try it. And I find myself sitting here now, 3 years into the show. It's 2025 in September, and we're still not much closer to sort of normalization. The lingering stigma from last century's reefer madness propaganda is still very much alive and well out there today, and the negative connotations around the cannabis plant are still kind of at war with the science that we're finding out all the time in terms of what is possible in terms of what the cannabis plant can bring to your life. So my mission with this show is to bring conversations with experts in the space to you, the listener, whether those experts be professors teaching in universities, scientists researching the plant in their labs, doctors prescribing it medically to patients, entrepreneurs and business owners who've created products or services, or people who are working with the plant on a farm maybe. Either way, anybody who's kind of just in the space and may be doing something to shape or influence the expanding green frontier that we are all kind of witnessing on a daily basis. Very exciting time to just be kind of watching these changes unfold, and I am very happy to be kind of chronicling that with you here on the Cannabis Man podcast. I'll also speak with politicians and journalists and anybody else in the media maybe covering the space, writers as well, pretty much anybody who I think might bring a fascinating conversation or a unique perspective here to this kind of debate. And today, I have a returning favorite to the show, a good friend of mine who branched off from a very well-known cannabis brand, kind of a legacy one, and saw that there was a need and an opportunity for something that really hasn't been done well in the cannabis space, and has created some really fun and exciting competitions that go state by state where cannabis is legal in America and sort of ranks the best that cannabis has to offer. I am talking, of course, about the Best in Grass competitions, which are returning here to Illinois, where I am, and that's dropping. The judge kits are going on sale this weekend, September 27th, which is this Saturday. And co-founder and COO of Best in Grass, Mark Kazanek, stops back by the show to talk about all the exciting developments of that, where you can get your kits if you're interested in becoming a judge, and kind of how all of this plays out if it's your first time hearing of it. Great conversation with Mark coming up. I also endeavor to kind of share some, whether they're events coming up or some sort of unique experiences that can be had related to cannabis. I'll also, of course, talk about products that I'm trying, and I can't help myself but sort of keep track of the news in the cannabis space, and I like to bring to you a collection of headlines, or at least some sort of shallow dive-ins to these news stories, and if I can bring an expert on to do a deeper dive, I will. But I've got a few headlines I wanted to share with you this week. The news cycle's changing all the time. We live in a 24/7 news cycle, and gosh, if it's not exhausting, I'm exhausted by it. I'm sure you are too. So I try and just keep it kind of cannabis focused, but there are plenty of developments changing every day in the cannabis space, and some of those are bigger than others. They kind of have larger ripples throughout cannabis, certainly, and then maybe society at large. I've got one such headline for you today. There were some big news kind of made earlier last week, I believe, when I first saw this article, and it harkens back to a study from a few years ago, but it has some huge implications for how long human beings have actually been consuming cannabis. So we'll get to that as well. Also, a couple of critical Supreme Court cases are making their way through the courts, and they could have some big implications for the future of cannabis. And an interesting article, I found it to be interesting anyway, and I'll be curious for your thoughts as well. But there is an effort to make some cannabis-based painkillers, and there's somebody who's already made over $1 billion in the pharmacy space who is betting big that this cannabis painkiller pharmaceutical could be a game changer. And of course, I always like to end every episode with a nice haiku. And I have one of those for you today as well. So strap in for another episode. Great opportunity right now to subscribe to the show, however you're listening to this, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, whatever your platform of choice is. There's an opportunity to subscribe to the show so you get every new episode once it comes out. Would mean a lot to me if you can leave a rating or a review for the show as well. If you see an opportunity to leave any kind of rating with stars or leave a comment on an episode, again, whichever platform, all of that is fine. It helps me continue to stand out from the crowd of millions of other podcasters out there. And I want to give a big shout out to everybody who's listened thus far, because it's helped nudge this show up the charts. And there's various ranking engines out there, but I like to focus on Good Pods because they always have some good news for me on how well this show has done. I was notified again that this podcast that I created a few years back has reached the top 100 all-time charts of theirs. It's actually number 24 in indie news and commentary. So not even a cannabis-specific category there, which really does make me feel good. But ratings and reviews and comments and recommendations, all of that is very helpful for me, because not only does it let other people know that this episode or this show might be worth their time if you think they'd be interested in the subject matter, but it also, reminds me that there's other people listening out there, that I'm not just kind of, doing this as a hobby for myself and my own enjoyment. It's nice to be reminded that there are people out there actually listening to this, and I thank you very much for sharing your time with me and spending some of your day with the Cannabis Man Podcast. So let's light this joint and take a puff. It's the Cannabis Man Podcast.
This is Tommy Chong, and you're listening to the Cannabis broadcast.
Yeah, all right. Before we get to my conversation with Mark, which I'm very excited to share with you, I just wanted to bring up some experiences that I had recently that I just want to share with you because that's kind of what I like to do here. I like to give you a little bit of what's been going on in my life, which is mainly occupied by a new job I started a couple of months ago, kind of in a different field from the broadcasting I've been doing, as well as just spending plenty of time with my wife Gretchen and my daughter Violet. And I just wanted to gush a little bit here because Violet started walking a couple of months ago, and she's just doing the toddling thing. It's so crazy if you're not a parent. It's so crazy to me how she was getting around just fine, crawling and moving quickly in that way, and she was sort of mobile. And she continued to, I don't want to say struggle, but she was just standing in place for a long while, and we didn't know when it would happen. And once that switch was flipped and she started being able to walk on her own, what's crazy now is how comfortable she's become with that form of movement. And now it's sort of like her default mode where she's getting up all the time and just walking on two legs all the time and, sort of speeding up as she does. And it's wonderful. And I also, I'm very proud of her for that. And I'm just very proud of my wife, Gretchen, who has been going pretty hard at her cookie business, Lion Legacy Cookie Company here in the Chicago area. She recently did gangbusters at a baby shower that everyone was just thrilled with. She's been cranking out new cookie recipes, and she is going to be taking part in her first art fair. She's got a tent at a Niles art fair, which is coming up October 4th. I'll get you some details about that next week. But if you want to try some delicious cookies and maybe you're in the area of Niles and want to come by and say hello, I will give you details next week on where you can find us on Saturday, October 4th. But I just got to tell you, it's been wonderful to just have cookies around all the time. The house always smells of cookies. It's kind of a nice thing to have. I will say my pants aren't fitting as well as they have in years past, and I gotta try and, sort of slide the other way here for a while. I don't think the holidays are going to help me at all in that matter, so just got to change my behavior, got to really kind of commit to that, but it's hard when there's delicious cookies staring you in the face all the time, especially when you're a fan of puffing joints at night after the baby goes to bed, like I am, and then you come back inside and these cookies that have been staring you in the face for a couple of hours and you've tried to ignore desperately, well, now the munchies set in and your willpower is crumbled. So not ashamed to admit I will house just baking sheets full of cookies some nights, and yeah, it's a good problem to have, I guess. It's just I'm loving this world that I'm in. Life is pretty good, I'll say that. And it's also good because I don't know if you're somebody who lives in or around a city, but these scooters, these motorized scooters, two wheels, just kind of like like the Razor scooters that you would just use your own human power of your legs to kind of, pedal, so to speak, the way a skateboard, you would pedal that, where you just, sort of shove one foot back on the sidewalk to gain some momentum going forward. Well, these look like those, but they have a motor, and they're able to go up to around 14 or 15 miles an hour. Some of them, they have different brands in different cities, but I've avoided using them for a long time. In Chicago, they weren't allowed in the loop. They may still not be, and God knows how many of them have found their way to the bottom of Lake Michigan already. I see them lying all over just regular blocks that are here and everything, so that always kind of annoyed me and such. But the other day when I was, getting back from work on my commute, I take the Purple Line, and then I take some buses to get back to our building. And instead of waiting for one of the buses that I normally take, because it was just kind of a long delay this particular day, I decided to fire up one of those scooters and just ride it home. And it was so fun. It was so fun. I just got to tell you, it was a nice day. Fall has kind of come in here. Again, don't know where you are, but autumn, the equinox just happened a few days ago, so we're only a few days proper into the season of fall, and it is already just feeling like we're in the middle of it. It's been gray skies here in Chicago for a little bit. Leaves are starting to fall. Colors are starting to change a bit. It's cooler. And so in the breeze, under a gray sky with the colors of the leaves popping, and I've got some music in my headphones, which I don't recommend. You're not supposed to do that. It may be, I may have violated some ordinances there. Don't narc on me, please. But I was pumping some music. I was riding legally in the street where you're supposed to. I wasn't, on the sidewalks clipping pregnant ladies and older, people trying to get by in life. I was actually in the bike lanes and just on the street where you're supposed to be with motorized vehicles or bikes. All those are meant to be ridden with vehicular traffic. So I was doing that and just having a grand old time. And so, I again, don't know if you have access to these things or, maybe just keep an eye out for them next time you travel, next time you're in one of these Midwestern cities that we have, these fine options. Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Louis probably has them. I bet some cities in Michigan have them. I'm sure Minnesota, I'm sure the Twin Cities up there probably do. But yeah, next time you're, looking for a way to get around and, maybe Uber's a little pricey, maybe the cabs, aren't going to be there fast enough, maybe you don't feel like putting the effort in to pedal a bike. The motorized scooter, not bad. That was a really fun time, and I'm definitely going to be doing that a little bit more going forward, especially as this fall weather continues. I got another few months here before the cold of winter really sets in and, kind of closes that door on me. I'm going to try and squeeze as much out of that as I can. And I will also be squeezing as much joy as is possible, which is plenty. It's a plentiful amount of joy that I am looking forward to having as I go through this Best in Grass Illinois competition, which is back for its second year. I have been looking forward to this ever since they announced it. Best in Grass has been touring around the country, just finished up in Michigan. Great reception there. And now it's prime time for the Prairie State. They are back, and there's going to be some excellent cannabis products to try. Find out all of that and more right now. My guest today is one of my absolute favorites, a great friend to the show. He's been doing some really important work out there in the field of legal cannabis. You know, if you've listened to this at all, how excited I am to watch this green frontier continue to expand around the world. All 50 states, as well as other countries out there are, if they're not already medically legal or recreationally legal, they're certainly paying attention to what happens after territories legalize in some form or fashion. And with that, you get a lot of people entering the fray. And this has some ups and downs like anything else, but what I'm always very excited about is that there are many, many great people, cultivators, product makers, who are creating goods and experiences for us in legal cannabis territories to experience. And it's just a wonderful time to be a cannabis enthusiast. It's wonderful to even be kind of curious if that's sort of how you identify yourself. It's just an exciting time. But when you get all of these new players into this field, when you get people who are either legacy growers or brand new to the game, you're getting sort of one of the big questions, I suppose, that's left over is how do they measure up against each other? Who's got the best grass to offer? That's really what we're talking about here. All these other different industries that we've come to know and rely on, there are rankings for all different products that you might go spend your money on. It's certainly true of alcohol. It's true of electronics, kitchen gadgets, your smartphones, whatever it is you're looking to buy. There are 10 to 20 rankings articles out there that you can type into your search browser and you can spend all day looking at where different products measure up based on, Good Housekeeping or whoever wrote the articles. You can kind of see how that goes. And that has been a really sort of important blank spot in the legal cannabis industry up until now. And if you've listened to the show before, you may have heard my guest today who spun off on his own, knew that this need was out there and created the Best in Grass competitions. These are judging contests across different states that have legalized cannabis, and what they do is they measure in different categories like flower, like edibles, like beverages. They measure up who's got the best in grass. And they did this last year. I was lucky enough to be a judge. It was one of the most fun experiences I've had in legal cannabis. And then they threw a stellar party, wonderful sort of red carpet event where they announced the winners, they gave out the awards, and everybody had a fabulous time. Well, if you didn't get to experience that last year, I've got great news for you. Best in Grass Illinois is back, and the judging kits are about to become available. The award shows, the competition is going to be underway, and the award ceremony will be later this year. So if you've been wondering how to kind of get involved in these things, how you best can experience the Best in Grass, which is so much fun, please join me in welcoming my guest, the co-founder of Best in Grass, Mark Kazanik. Welcome, Mark. Thanks for coming back.
Oh, Don, it is a pleasure to be here, man. I really appreciate that. Very kind introduction, and it's great to reconnect, man.
Yeah, always good to talk with you, buddy. And I really do feel that way because like I said, I feel like you're doing important work, and even just the idea, the notion that there needed to be some rankings, but the flair that you've added to it, kind of bringing this Hollywood feel across different states that have legalized. I just think it's so much fun. So let's just get started with you and how things have been going with Best in Grass.
Yeah, things have been going great. We have, last year we had 5 states under our belt, and now we are in 9 different states across the country.
All right.
And people are taking a liking to us. We've done everywhere from, Oklahoma to Michigan, Illinois, of course, to Rhode Island, New Mexico, Massachusetts. Now we just launched in New Jersey last month. I'm about to announce the winners for Montana this week. So we're moving and grooving with a very small team, but with big dreams to help identify and award the best cannabis brands across the country. And when I say that, I want to put a focus on, it's not me. It's not the Dons. It's not the industry professionals. This is for the people who actually spend their hard-earned dollars at the dispensary to buy good products, who are out there searching, okay, do I like edibles? Do I like pre-rolls? Do I like topicals, flower, concentrates? What is out there that is best for me? And then within those categories, what products, what brands, or what subcategories are the best for me and my recreational or medicinal uses? So it's the real people who actually get to experience this and engage, and then give real feedback to the brands. And everybody comes together to celebrate that beautiful award show that you attended, which I cannot wait to bring back to Chicago this year as well.
Yeah, man, it was so awesome, and I could not agree with you more. I mentioned how important it is to kind of rank. We have it in all these other industries, but as people are, like we said, whether they're legacy, they've been in it for a while, or there are people new coming into this space every single day. As it gets legalized, as it gets more normalized, there are people who are curious, who've never given it a shot because of several different reasons. Take your pick, but there are people who are exploring this, whether because they hear a story about somebody who found that it helped them with chronic body pain. They hear a story about how it helps somebody get to sleep after years of insomnia. There are so many different things that cannabis can help with medically, and then of course there's just the rec side of it. When you're looking for a nice social buzz, whether you're still into alcohol or maybe you've given it up, you find that cannabis fits in your life a little bit better. There are so many reasons that people are being drawn into this space. And as they are, especially the ones curious, they're looking for some kind of guide to say, hey, who's making this stuff? How does it measure up to maybe some of the strains I've heard about that I like, that I've tried for myself? What is maybe a nice entry point for the first beverage that I should ever try? And that's where I feel like this Best in Grass can really kind of inform people, not just about their everyday purchases, but maybe when you want to splurge too. Like when you're thinking, this is sort of my day to day, but I just got, paid from work. I did a good thing this week, paid my bills. Now I want to treat myself a little bit. What is maybe the best that my dispensary has to offer that's a little more premium that feels like it's worth my dollars when I want to sort of treat myself? And so I'm just so glad that you're bringing this kind of knowledge to different states that have legalized. 9 states now. That's fantastic. And I know that you kind of mentioned that you're about to give the awards out in Montana. And as you said, you added a New Jersey there. And Michigan, I understand there's a current competition there underway. Michigan has obviously been a huge market for a little while. Let me just ask, among these states, how has the response been, especially some of these new ones like New Jersey and Montana? How are you finding people are receiving you guys?
So at first, everybody tells me to screw off. You're not from here. We don't know you. We got our own thing here. So I have to battle a lot of no's at first. But I'm persistent. I don't, I try to put my ego aside and just say, all right, you know what? I get it. People are trying to run their business. They don't have time for random people to call them and, ask them to submit products into a competition or to be a retailer. So at first it is pretty difficult, I have to admit. But, I dig in. I try to properly introduce myself, get people to give me 10 minutes of their time on a FaceTime call or whatever the call might be. And, typically people have been like, all right, you know what? You actually seem like a relatively good person. You're not asking me for all my money and you're not just trying to sell me something and bounce. And I'm actually flying out to the States to, meet these people and to interact with them. So I've been able to turn a lot of no's into yeses. And then I also get, I couldn't do this without the support of both my team, but also the industry and community supporters in each state. So, for example, Rhode Island. Let's take Rhode Island, for example. A lot of those people are very close-knit. It's a very small community. They do not care much for outsiders. They have their own competitions. They have their own, dealings, and they don't need me. But after some persistence, after getting to, get the support of some different community supporters, whether it's people who are in the industry, on a license side, or simply just cannabis educators, influencers, whatnot, I'm able to get more people on board and prove to them that, hey, we are doing something unique here. We're doing something special. I don't want your money. I just want to get the best brands into these competitions, get the best retailers into these competitions, and everybody will win. And yeah, so far it's been working really well. New Jersey, for example, we launched a couple weeks ago and those kits have flown. I'm even getting complaints from people who are like, hey, I thought you guys had 2,400 judge kits. Why is everybody sold out? Like, what the hell? And it's like, yeah, we told you guys, limited quantity, first come, first serve. If you want something, especially like a flower kit or a concentrate kit, you better set that alarm and wake up Saturday morning and get to the dispensary because those will sell very quickly. So I'm grateful and flattered to know that people are actually taking a liking to us. They're buying, people are buying judge kits. Retailers are selling really well and saying, hey, this is like one of the best days I've had in terms of like revenue or sales on any given day. And that's just music to my ears. And then when it comes down to the award show, that's my favorite part and oftentimes other people's favorite part because they get to relax. They get to, dress up a little bit, finally put on, some fun clothes that, in our industry of cannabis, people don't really do that much. So it's a little bit of a unique take on things. And that's also funny because some people will also complain about that first. So, I got to dress up. I got to put on a blazer. What is this? You work in cannabis? And then it's like, look, man, try it out. You're going to look good. You're going to feel good. Your whole team's going to be great. And you're going to get some great photos. And I promise you will hit me up after the award show telling me that you had a good time and that you're happy that you dressed up and attended. And that is like almost 100% of the time the feedback that we get. So Montana coming up soon. A lot of people don't care to dress up. A lot of people didn't necessarily trust us in what we were doing at first, but now they're 100% in. I've, luckily been able to get a ton of good sponsors and other supporters who are like, hell yeah, we're spreading the word. We're going to help pay for some of the event, and just be a part of it. So I'm feeling really good about what we have built so far. And all that to say, we still have a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I get that, man. I love that, and I can see how, people in the places like you mentioned, they're tight-knit, they have their community, they're established, and maybe a little skeptical of outsiders, but it also does not surprise me that someone with your personality and the type of guy that you are can crack that, code of silence or sort of that wall that's put up toward outsiders and eventually get in there because you're definitely a personable guy, and this idea also has a lot of power and merit. And, I also agree with you that there are many people in the cannabis space that, sort of sometimes can resent dressing up. And as you were describing that, I just kind of had this thought, how Hall of Fame inductees get the gold jacket and Masters winners in golf get the green jackets. Maybe there's something there, after you're in all 50 states and the budget has grown tenfold. Maybe there's something for winners, not just trophies. Maybe there's a jacket or a tie with some, cannabis leaves on it, or that's just green in color, that maybe it can be kind of part of the thing where winners of years past can then wear that jacket to the award shows of the future. I'm just spitballing. I don't know if that's entered your lexicon at all in terms of awards, but there's something there maybe.
Yeah, I actually think that's really fun. So yeah, now you got my wheels spinning because, as we return to these states, Michigan will be our first return where, the return of Michigan went really great in terms of the brands and entries that we received. That increased year over year. And then the number of kits that sold, the pace in which they sold also increased year over year. Now we're going to see this award show come to play. And we'll see how many attendees, increase year over year, and also just, what winners won last year and who attends. Because I would love to honor some of the previous winners, who are either helping to defend their crown or, some of them even bowing out to say, okay, I won last year. I'll let somebody else win this year.
Right.
And trying to see what I can do to bring those people on stage or give them some type of fun patch or blazer or something like that.
Yeah.
That is a best in grass winner.
Yeah, exactly. Just another item of clothing, another visual cue of something to be proud of too. And Michigan, as we just mentioned, very big cannabis market. I certainly know a lot of people in the Midwest love driving up to Michigan, getting some great deals at those dispensaries. But also Illinois is starting to close the gap a little bit. I mean, God knows I'll still get plenty of people in my ear, probably hitting me up after this interview airs about how egregious the prices are in Illinois, how offended they are that I even compared it to Michigan. But the fact is the price point that gap is closing between price and value here in Illinois. The competition that's been, entered into the marketplace has brought prices down, and the incentive to make quality cannabis products, which is something I always harp on in the show, that is alive and well in a place like Illinois. And so let's, that being where I'm headquartered, that's where, the award show will be. The entrance for products to start being judged and for people to become judges, that's coming up.
Yes. So right now we are actively onboarding retailers and dispensaries across the state, which we already have Zenleaf, Happy Cannabis, Maple Glen, Mission, Trinity, Bud and Rita's, New Era, Revolution, Shangri-La, et cetera, everything listed on bestingrass.io in terms of the retailer locations to test, rate, and review. The dispensaries will then put in a little bit of muscle and effort to build the judge kits across the state. And then we all go on sale Saturday, September 27th across the state at 30 locations from Sage and Normal to Chicago to everywhere in between. We always try to cover as much of the state as we can. Saturday, September 27th is when the judge kits will go on sale, and that it's first come, first serve, open to the public. If you are eligible to purchase cannabis as a medical or adult use user, you are eligible to buy one of our judge kits, and even multiple judge kits. Only one kit per category per person, but you can buy an indica flower and a sativa flower, obviously up to purchase limits. And we also have the medical categories still alive and well in Illinois, which is unique for us and for the industry.
It was so fun last year going to the dispensary. The hype there was palpable. There was a long line outside the dispensary I went to, and it was really cool meeting the other people who had, sort of cleared their calendar for the day, hang out at the dispensary, get their judge kits, and then just know that you've got some of the most fun homework that you've ever had to do sort of awaiting you over the next few weeks to just try out these various cannabis products and, kind of input the information, your observations, your, what your take was on them into the judging portal. And I gotta say, for my money, I really appreciated that effort that you guys put into that, Mark, because it wasn't just a drop down of, here, rank this based on taste 1 through 10, 1 weakest, 10 strongest, and sort of, tell us, out of 5, tell us, what you felt about this thing. There were a few different questions that were like, fill in this box and don't just give us a numerical ranking. Let's be a little flowery here with our language. Let's go ahead and really paint a picture for the people who maybe haven't tried this as to what your experience was when you imbibed in this product, when you ingested this cannabis. How did you feel? And you can be as sort of straight-laced and reporter style as you like, or you can be as flowery and as poetic as you might like to really kind of tell a story about what that product is doing for you. And I felt like that made for such a more enjoying read. I was, enjoyed myself kind of coming up with that stuff, but then also reading other people's, judgments as well. All of that was just a fun piece of being a judge in this contest. So I just want to give you kind of an attaboy for thinking about, let's just not do the numerical ranking. Let's not only do that. Let's allow people to really crank some different levels and sort of, take people on the journey of what their experience was really like.
Exactly. It's not, our slogan is find your high, find your why. And we truly believe that a lot of people are just uneducated, and that's a whole issue in itself, both providing education for people, but also just people not even really caring to be educated. We're trying to change that, make it easier to be educated, and figure out, again, what categories work best, what products work best, what brands work best, what terpene profiles work best. What are they looking for? Are they looking for something related to appetite, sleep, pain, stress? Let's figure out your goals and desires, and then let's provide you with a judge kit that might match that the best way. And hopefully there's a product in there that people truly love and will seek out in dispensaries later on. And with that said, as they're judging this, we don't just want it to be numerical scores. We want them to give a full novel and unleash that inner, writer within them to say, hey, I opened up the bag. I cracked open the jar. I smelled lemony, these little aromas, bright green fluffy buds. It was trimmed to perfection. I broke it up in a grinder. What type of grinder? Did you hand grind it? What papers did you roll it in? Did you put in a bong? Every bit of their experience from start to finish, from smoke to 30-minute, effects, that is what we want to hear. And all of that goes anonymously back to the brands. And that's what these brands want. They're like, cool, I'm investing in my brand. I'm going to get marketing, and I'm going to get feedback, and I'm going to get sampling from Best in Grass. And we truly want every judge who buys a judge kit to really sit down in front of a computer and be diligent and be thorough when judging these things, because their feedback will be very important. It will go back to the brands, again, anonymously. And then the brands will ideally improve year over year on what they're pumping out into the market.
Yeah, totally agree there. And it is important, that the fun that people can have exploring these kits, but also, as you say, the feedback for these brands. That's another important thing. I love that you touched on the education side of this, because it's always so funny to me how many people from like the legacy, market who may have, been consumers before legalization or whatever. It's always funny to me how many of them still have the opinion like, oh, it's just weed. It's just grass. I'm just gonna, I'm just going for that. Maybe I'll split it up, indica, sativa, whatever. And yet every day, every week, we're finding out the importance that terpenes play in your experience. We don't have that sort of low standards when we consume anything else, especially that we're putting into our bodies. Whether it's what goes into the food products at the restaurant, or how the alcohol, how the cocktail is made. You don't just go to a store or a bar and say, yeah, just give me some alcohol. You say, I want, it's daytime. I want a bourbon, for before dinner. I want an aperitif to help with my appetite. And then I want wine after dinner, and then a cognac at the end of the night. There's a whole different place in your life where these different drinks live. And for cannabis, it's like there's hundreds of cannabinoids and compounds that dictate how you feel, what your experience is like based on how you consume this plant. And so I totally agree with you. That education thing's really important. And that's another benefit that I think this Best in Grass is really providing for these states. Let me ask you also, Mark, as you're moving across these different states, and you're working with dispensaries and, kind of people who are trying to get their feet under them in legal cannabis. And, you and I talk about marketing and how much that of an issue that is for people, especially, in this legal cannabis space. The issue of Schedule 1, where cannabis still is, really prevents a lot of businesses from having any sort of marketing budget. And it speaks to why Best in Grass is so important. It's another reason for that. But let me ask you, as somebody who's trying to get this brand off the ground, how sort of have you been frustrated with the maintenance, the maintaining of Schedule 1 status for cannabis? How does that impact Best in Grass?
Honestly, it's more so how it affects our clients and our partners in just such a negative way. They're just treated as if it's just an illicit drug, as if we're selling hard drugs, and they can't write off a lot of, the 280 taxes is one of the biggest issues, where people can't write off a ton of the usual business expenses that any other business can write off. So when that affects them and their profitability and therefore their marketing budgets or other budgets, that affects people like me. So it's hopefully going to get to the point where they can write things off, where expenses that any other business can write off, or just do other traditional business operations. Once that's allowed, I think hopefully we all win. Obviously there's ups and downs of every little governmental change and policy that is going to affect our industry. I think this one will be a good one for people to, be able to put in the real investments into their business and know that that investment is going to be seen by the eyes of the man as a real investment into business, and not just some nonsense write-off or some illicit drug business that shouldn't be legally able to write certain expenses off.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I'm still learning every day about, what the implications are going to be and how that's going to affect my clients' businesses or our business. But we're playing in the sand until then.
Yeah, totally. And well said. I think that there's a lot to that, and it is very complicated. We try as best we can to parse it here on the show and on others, but it changes every day, and it's a frustrating thing. It's basically this lingering status, like it's still black market in the days where it was not legal. As far as taxes are concerned, these legal businesses might as well still be in that zone, which is just such a goofy thing. But let me ask you final question, Mark. As you've been traveling around these different states and you're running these Best in Grass competitions and you get to try these different submitted products and the judging kits, and you're meeting these dispensary owners and you're kind of trying everything, what have you found, and just you personally, what have you found to be some products that you've really started to enjoy that maybe you didn't always enjoy, that you're kind of getting warm to now because you've been able to try all these Best in Grass products across different states that have legalized? What is a Mark Kazanek really sipping on or enjoying now that, you have found through this journey you've been on?
Yeah, great question. I think beverages alone have been really, really great. I like to try to test those out. Some of them taste amazing. Some of them taste very weed-like.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the fact that I can sip them casually at a different, unique setting without, combusting or smoking in certain areas. It's a nice, convenient way to consume. So I'm starting to just, consume some beverages a little bit more, and also bring some, without flagging myself, just bringing some to other friends and allowing them to try things. Because, I come from the talent agency world. Not a lot of the people in that industry consume. They're like, oh, what? I don't want to smoke. And no, I had a bad experience in college from edibles or whatever else. But now I'm trying to bring them, some smaller dose, easily accessible beverages, gummies, whatever else, to be like, hey, try this. I promise if you take it slow and you don't rip the bong like your college friend told you, or eat 100 milligram edible like your college friend told you, you'll experience, have a different experience.
Yeah.
So beverages have been good. Other mood and effect-based gummies have been great. We're seeing a lot of CBN infused into gummies, and I don't have the best time sleeping. I consume before bed for sleep. So that's a big plus for cannabis for me.
Same.
And when I can have CBN, it's a big issue for a lot of people. Our minds are always going, how can I disconnect? How can I shut my racing thoughts off? Cannabis helps, and having a good gummy with CBN has been a really great lifesaver for me. So Caminos, Camino's sours, the Deep Sleep one is really good. Nova Farms has this Zonked brand, which is, sleep focused gummies. So those have been really amazing. Other than that, I have always been a flower guy through and through since I started, consuming cannabis, in my college days. Now I've gone a little bit away from flower. It's still the most beautiful, part of cannabis, I think, is just the plant itself. And when I can go to a grow and like look at flower and touch flower, it's amazing. It's a great perk of the job. But all that to say is rosin and other concentrates, I'm very much turned on to that now. I had a weird experience, or not a weird connotation with, the whole like look and feel of dabbing, the blowtorch, the hot metal rig.
Yeah.
And then these e-rigs come out. I got a Focus V, a Carta Focus V, and I love it. I can set the temperature. I can take, very light, easy rips. And I'm feeling a lot of good, tasting a lot of good, just flavors, better aromas, and just a clearer headed high. And that's been a lot better for me because I work a ton. I can't wake up groggy, and having a little puff of a rosin instead of a little puff of a joint has left me sleeping really well and waking up less groggy and more clear-headed than I would with, smoking paper and flour and all the plant material that comes along with that.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I'm right there with you. I'm still kind of in that zone where I tried some dabbing, back in the day, and I felt the exact same way. It's so intimidating. It is so, it's not really approachable for somebody who's used to just like rolling joints or whatever. But I do love some of the devices that are coming out that are making things like rosin and, these batters and shatters and stuff a little more accessible for people, especially on the go, and all of that you laid out. I'm right there with you, man. It's a magical time to be alive and just sort of celebrating the legal cannabis space. And so, listener, if any of this sounds good to you, if you're excited and really, game to get yourself knee deep in some of the best flower that's out there, try some new beverages, try some new edibles, whether they're gummies or chocolates or any of these kinds of edible cannabis creations, or as we just said, some of the concentrates that are out there. Be sure to keep in mind the Best in Grass judging kits, which for Illinois are becoming available September 27th, and it's just some of the most fun that I've had in this space, and I really look forward to being a judge this year and getting to that award show coming up later in the winter. And thank you so much, co-founder of Best in Grass, Mark Kazanek, for stopping by today and sharing your great perspective about cannabis.
Thank you so much, Don. Thank you to everybody who's listening. Check us out, bestingrass.io on web, Instagram, bestingrass.io_, and you guys will be laughing and enjoying the content that we pump out. It's been really fun just, building out an Instagram profile and putting out, fun reels and videos and things of that nature. And for anybody who's looking to judge, please sign up for updates on our website. You're going to be the first ones to know which dispensaries are locked in, what the pricing is when it's dropped, and just other updates. And, we're friendly, we're approachable. Reach out if you guys have any questions, comments, requests, whatever it is. We always try to take people's feedback into play because that's the business that we're in. We want to get feedback from consumers, both for our company and for the cultivators and processors and the dispensaries. And we want to actually act on that. And that has been what has helped me develop Best in Grass over the past 2 years, but, also getting feedback from cultivators, processors, and dispensaries over the past 7 years of doing cannabis competitions. So it's working. Your voice matters, your opinions matter, and your judging very, very much matters, which, speaking of which, I know it's work. I know judging takes a long time. If everybody judges, if they buy a judge kit and they fully judge their kit by the deadline, they're going to get 2 free tickets to the Best in Grass Chicago Award Show, which is looking like December 10th at the Park West Theater in Chicago.
Hey.
And they get a credit equal to 20% of their pre-tax purchase price to then shop at the dispensary that they bought their judge kit from after the award show.
Wow.
So to put that all into perspective, if Don Kleppen buys an indica flower judge kit on Saturday, September 27th, and that indica flower judge kit is $100, which, that's just the price I'm saying for simplicity's sake right now.
Yeah.
If you fully judge, we're going to say, all right, Don, on behalf of Best in Grass and the dispensary that you buy your judge kit from, here is 2 free tickets to the award show. Come and join us. Come celebrate. See who wins. And then after the award show, we're going to email you again and say, all right, Don, the winners are in. The judge credits are uploaded into the loyalty list for each of the dispensaries. go back into the store that you buy your kit from, and now you have a $20 credit because 20% of the $100 that you spent, $20 to go back to the dispensary and shop, and Best in Grass is paying for that.
Wow.
So now you get a nice reward for judging, and you get to go back and hopefully shop for the winning product, but you can shop for whatever you want, and we'll help pay for that.
Oh, man, I love that, Mark. That is so much fun. There's a lot of incentive there, not just getting to try some of the best in grass products that are out there. That's not, as good enough as that is. Then you get free tickets to the award show, and you get this sort of, you get some money to spend at the dispensary from Best in Grass. So, listener, if all of that sounds good to you, head to bestingrass.io, and you can find out when these competitions are coming up in your state, and you can follow along there for any updates and just kind of sign up to be a judge whenever the awards are coming around to your town. Thanks a lot, Mark. Always great to talk with you, man.
Likewise, Don. Appreciate you. God bless, and we'll talk to you soon. See you in Illinois.
And there you have it, listener. I want to thank one more time my guest, Mark Kazanek, COO and co-founder of Best in Grass. Really appreciate the effort he puts into this, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be a judge once again. I've been looking forward to this all year, and it's finally here. If you are interested in taking part in this, or if you're looking for a dispensary in the city of Chicago area where you can grab one, I'm going to be at the Bud and Rita's dispensary in Avondale, which is on Belmont, this Saturday the 27th. I'll be grabbing my judging kit there. I will be there with plenty of others who are in the cannabis space, some people from Best in Grass. It's going to be a fabulous time. Come out, say hello, grab your judging kit, or just any other cannabis product you've been wanting to try, or if you're low on something, re-up your supply. We will be at that Bud and Rita's on Belmont in Avondale this weekend. Such a great time. Man, is it a great time of year. I'm jazzed, and I am also jazzed to share some of these headlines with you. I want to talk about if you've heard the show at all before, you've heard me say this, but in case it's been a while, cannabis beverages are just going bonkers. I've been saying for a couple of years now that those were going to be a pop-off category, and they certainly have been. Crescent 9 THC Seltzer is topping the Nielsen ratings, according to a BusinessWire.com article shared earlier this month. They say it's the number one selling THC drink in stores nationwide. Company is based out of New Orleans, and I have not yet tried a Crescent 9 THC Seltzer. Seeing this article, I have made it sort of a priority to give it a shot. I'll see if I can't get somebody to come on the show and talk about the company's sort of stance on things and their philosophy on making products and such, but here's the real kicker as well. But here's the other kicker. This article goes on to say that even though that is the number one atop the Nielsen ratings, another sort of under the radar piece of information, I thought, was featured in this article as well. And that is that cannabis beverages have now crossed the $1 billion mark on their own. They've brought in that amount of money. And as I've said, there's a lot of reasons for this, but I think chief among them are the timing when society at large, especially younger people, are reevaluating their relationships with alcohol. Older people tend to move off of it. I think at least wiser ones do, because the hangovers start to kick you a little bit harder with each passing year. And also the role that beverages play in our society. That's the other piece of this. I have said from the beginning that as much as I love rolling joints or smoking flower in that way, sharing a beverage with somebody, sharing a meal, but certainly cracking that beverage, handing somebody a bottle or a can while you are gathered together at a bar, at a block party, over a bonfire, wherever you are, that sharing of the beverage is fundamental to the human experience. And all those reasons, I think, contribute to why cannabis beverages have crossed that $1 billion threshold. Another interesting threshold being crossed here is sort of the one between cannabis and pharmaceuticals. And that is being done, according to a recent Forbes article, by a pharma billionaire developing a cannabis painkiller to replace dangerous opioids. It's an article by Will Yakowitz of Forbes staff, published September 12th. Clemens Fisher has never smoked pot in his life, but he believes his new experimental drug could reap billions in sales and change millions of lives. The article goes on as, gives a lot of background into Fisher and the impetus for him making this. But I just wanted to bring this up because he has invested more than $250 million of his own money, and the company is Vertanical. He founded it in 2017 with a cannabis cultivation site and pharmaceutical manufacturing plant in Denmark. And they just successfully passed phase 3, the last clinical trial hurdle in Germany, and they're awaiting marketing approval. So far, promising results in clinical trials. VER-01 was found to be more effective than opioid painkillers with fewer side effects, including no evidence for addiction. Crucial. And, as I have talked about at length on this show, if you haven't heard these interviews before, I highly recommend you go back and listen to them. The fact that cannabis is an alternative for it, and it successfully can treat the pain or discomfort people are feeling without at least as much potential for addiction as opioids have, it's just incredible what they're finding out. And that's why I really do think that this cannabis painkiller seems to me to be kind of a slam dunk too. And I tend to agree with this Clemens Fisher that this probably is going to be a game changer, and it probably is going to reap billions, because I just think that people, are looking for alternatives and something that is, naturally based. People are using cannabis socially as an alternative to alcohol and some of these other things. There is a pharmaceutical and medical alternative side to this too. And I'm really glad to see somebody pitting it against opioids when those have been such a huge problem over the last few decades. But going back well beyond a few decades here, there is a major shift afoot, and I was so excited to bring this to your attention when I saw it. This was published September 16th at Cannanaskis.com. Cannanaskis.com. Cannabis timeline pushed to over 20,000 years. This is by Dave Dormer, and the article is referencing a study from 2023, a morphometric study, and you can click the link. It takes you to that original study, which is legit. But the research this article highlights suggests that the use of cannabis may date back 20,000 years or more, far earlier than previously thought. For a while now, most scholars have agreed that the cultivation of cannabis started in Asia somewhere between 10,000 and 12,000 years ago, during the advent of farming, after the last ice age. But this study from 2 years ago suggests it may have begun far earlier, in what is now Western China and the Tibetan Plateau. The study looked at the size of seeds, which began to change as people started using them thousands of years ago. People have been living in the Tibetan Plateau for up to 38,000 years, and in Central Asia for up to 50,000. So it's plausible cannabis has been used up to that long. The plant itself, as noted in this article, has been around for millions of years, and the oldest plant material discovered so far is seeds dated back to 8,000 BC, found in Okinoshima, Japan, at a Neolithic site linked to the Jomon people. The seeds were likely used as food and to make oil, they say, possibly a fuel source in that regard as well. The article goes on and gives some more dates and whatnot. The first users, a professor of geography at University of Kansas, Barney Whorf, says, were probably nomadic peoples. He says, we know this from the burial mounds of chieftains. Whorf authored the 2014 paper High Points, an historical geography of cannabis. I browsed through that. I thought it was a very interesting read as well. Some cool tidbits in there. And this article goes into even some possible origins for the word of cannabis, and goes on with its religious ties, and finally kind of gets to the meat of this, which is pushing that date back to 20,000 plus years. And that is really the main thing here. And then, of course, it kind of ties it all back to this study, which again pushes that timeline back. I have talked on the show since I started this about some of the earliest evidences that we had of when cannabis was first used among humans. And the speculation of when has always been thousands of years because we, partially anyway, not only do we have the archaeological evidence, which this study, gets at as well, but aside from that, we have biological evidence. We, as human beings, we have endocannabinoid systems in our bodies, in our brains. We have a system which is designed to receive and process cannabinoids. We do not have that for alcohol, or caffeine, or sugar, or any of these other plants that we bring into our bodies like that. And yet, we have seemingly evolved in some way to receive compounds of this plant. So how long would we have had to have been using it in order to evolve that feature? Clearly, as this study indicates, over 20,000 years. That's how long. And it's also just why the current sort of attitude about it, the current prohibition as it still exists, Schedule 1 status, all of those things are extra frustrating that since 1937, not even 100 years ago, but that time period, the negative connotations of cannabis, the smear campaign, the reefer madness, the propaganda, all of that was so effective that you've got more than one generation of human beings that are still, I think many of them, scared to even experiment with this plant because of what they've been told over the years, what they've heard, and now what is just sort of like rolling around in people's brains in terms of, what they think of the brand of cannabis. And that's just really such a shame. Because imagining that people over 20,000 years of humanity have used this plant for different, things, for different functions, and yet now, these most recent 90 years have done such damage to the reputation. And it's just past time that we admit the war on drugs was a failure and just move past it. And at the very least, get cannabis off the scheduled list of controlled substances. And if they're not going to fully deschedule it right away, you've got to at least move it to Schedule 3. The fact that it's still on a list which does not acknowledge its medical value, and you've got 38 states and, plenty of countries around the world that are acknowledging the medical value and have legal medical markets, where people can be prescribed it and then buy it and use it as patients. It's a hypocrisy that's just there in the face of anybody who's paying any kind of attention. So let's get it off that schedule. Let's make it Schedule 3. Let's move this thing forward. Let's stop living in the past. Or, I guess, let's live in the past just before 1937. If we're going to live in the past, let's just go back to a deeper past, I suppose. And that'd be fine by me. I'd like to, recreate some of those roaring 20s parties and get some non-prohibited cannabis in here. And I will say, living in a legal cannabis space as I do here in Illinois, it's wonderful. It's magical. I used to dream about this stuff. And having a competition like Best in Grass, which is here to rank this stuff and just celebrate the different sort of products that are being made and are available for all of us to buy and enjoy, it's like a dream. Just wonderful stuff. And that's all I've got time for to give you today in terms of news. I will get to the Supreme Court cases next week on the next episode of the Cannabis Man podcast. But before I let you go, let us depart, as we tend to do, with a high haiku. Read by my man, Reg Kiefer. Take it away, Reg.
Okay. smoke drifts through the past. 20,000 years revealed. Cannabis endures. Okay. Yeah, that was okay.
Just okay? You didn't... What? It didn't inspire you?
I mean, inspire, no. I wouldn't say they rarely do, but, I liked your other one.
What other one, man? No, we didn't... we only do the one.
No, but you always write more than one, and I want to read the other one.
All right.
Crowds gather. Kits bloom. Judges weigh the finest strains. Best in Grass is back. Oh, yeah, it is, man. You see why I like that one better, man? It gets you hyped, dude.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It's pretty good. I am hyped for the Best in Grass, and all right, that's great. Get out of here, Reg. You've done your piece. I want to thank you, listener, for sticking around through that. Thank you for putting up with everything. I apologize, and I really appreciate you listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, leave a rating or review. Be sure to subscribe so you get the next one when it drops. And a reminder, I will be at the Bud and Rita's in Avondale off of Belmont in Chicago this Saturday, September 27th for the Best in Grass Judge Kit launch. Really looking forward to spending some time with, and I'd like to thank for stopping by this episode Mark Kazanek, co-founder and COO of Best in Grass. Really looking forward to this competition, really looking forward to just this fall season and having some wonderful cannabis experiences with friends, with family, with the good people of life. Do spend some time with those people that make you happiest, that make you feel like you're glad to be here. You will never regret spending more time with those people. Call, send a text, let somebody know how you're feeling or when you're thinking about them. Life is short, goes by fast, and you gotta squeeze it. And just like a good nug of the old bud, squeeze that and just get all the joy out of it you can while it's around. And I will do the same, and let's reconvene next week on the Cannabis Man Podcast. Bye-bye. Cannabis Man is 100% originally crafted by myself, Don Kleppen. Original theme music written and composed by Yusu Kim, aka Good Son.